What is up, everyone? Welcome to Promethean Tides. I'm General, and as always, I'm joined by Breaker. What's going on, Breaker?
Come on, man. Trump is trying to destroy America. That's why I had to send the FBI in to stop his evil supervillain plan. Trump is like Lex Luthor with a toupee. Come on, man. America.
And that would make Joe Biden Superman, which is precisely how we envision him here on the Promethean Tides. So,
I took down Corn Pop by rubbing the hair on his legs in the wrong direction. That was his only weakness.
oh, that's fucking brutal. Jesus Christ. Um, so, obviously there has been this has been a very active news week. Uh, we had the raid on Trump's Mar-a-Lago house from the FBI. We had the passing of the of that just cluster fuck of a bill. Um, the the Inflation Protection Act, and that's going to be so interesting. And just today, we had a man who was upset about the raid on Trump's house take a rifle and a nail gun to some sort of FBI building and open fire on officers. Of course, he didn't. So, from what we know right now, he didn't actually kill anyone, and he himself was killed. So all of that has happened this week, and maybe we'll talk a little bit about it, but I mostly wanted to save it for the Saturday show, where we will have a much more in-depth analysis. I personally, I kind of want to wait just a little bit longer and see how the dust settles on some of these things. And then we will give a thorough analysis that should be up Sunday. We'll record Saturday, and it should be up Sunday. So, yeah. So that will be the plan. That's in the works. But for now, we just wanted to put out something maybe a little bit more lighthearted, perhaps. Something to take our minds off of the impending civil war or world war or just total war that it just feels like we're encroaching on. So, with that in mind, yeah, Breaker, you were saying some shit about libertarianism.
Yeah, I was kind of going over this thought in my head recently. It's like the way I see it, it's as though libertarians are the useful idiot class of the right wing, and the SJW blue hair type identity politics collectivist people are the useful idiots of the left wing.
Okay, so of course, me being a libertarian, I almost necessarily have to disagree with you there.
I'm sure there are some collectivists on the left wing that are a lot smarter than the average useful idiot type of them that ground their philosophy and ideology a lot more stably. And they're, you've encountered some like really stupid libertarians at your time, like those full blast ANCAP McNuke motherfuckers.
No, actually, what you don't realize is that they have the highest IQs and the highest power levels. You know, you as a feeble-minded non-ANCAP, you just don't see the true brilliance in what they're saying.
As Joran Brook from the Ayn Rand Institute says, you have to be really smart to think of something as dumb as libertarianism and keep it consistent.
Them's fighting words, bro.
I was like, hey, what if nothing was regulated by any type of government bodies and agency? Well, we do this, 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 and this. And you keep like thinking of more and more stuff. Every question comes up, and you slowly start to realize the more that happens, like, wait a minute, everything I'm describing and how to deal with all this plethora of problems of a human civilization is just starting to sound more and more like a government the more big brained I get.
So, all right. So, my stance here is that I am a libertarian, but I'm not an ANCAP. I recognize that there is a purpose and a function for a government. From my perspective, that doesn't mean that the size of our current government is ideal. I think that we could have a much smaller government, and I believe that where there is government, it should be localized. So I would especially like to see, say, within America, the federal government be much, much, much smaller and fundamentally up to the whims of the states. I think that where government power exists, it should be within the states, and even below the state level, at the local municipality, city, town government level. I understand that, I mean, power does have a tendency to concentrate itself, but, you know, here in America, we actually went for a couple, well, maybe like 150 years before there was such a consolidation of power, where the federal government got massive. So, you know, maybe it's an eventuality that can't be stopped, but you know what? Maybe we just go back to smaller level governments and do another 150 years of that. That's what I would support. Now, I understand that there are people out there who are just full blown ANCAPs. I don't agree with that position, and it's really mostly because, well, okay, their answer to not having a government, but still requiring organization and some sort of hierarchical structure, is to just have corporations play the role of the government. And what they've created in that philosophy is just another government. Fundamentally, the only difference between a corporation and a government is who has the monopoly on power. Otherwise, I think most ANCAPs would agree there's not a very large difference between the two. So, from my perspective, I believe that, the ANCAPs are just making their own government. I don't think that there's anything wrong in just wanting a smaller, more locally centered government. I think that's actually the best thing for America. Whether that makes me a useful idiot or not, I think that that's how the Founding Fathers intended our nation to be run. And, you know, God damn it, I support it.
One of the problems I see with this, like when you start approaching the smaller and smaller government, like this all looks and sounds good on paper. But when you reach a certain terminal impasse, you get to the point where, okay, like the government body is now so small and so amenable to even the slightest change in tide of the popular zeitgeist of the time, whatever that might be, that all it needs is a sufficiently well-rounded orator to come along and convince people. It's like, hey, you know, you're living pretty good here, but how would you like to live even better if you did this one thing? And this one thing is totally congruent with everything you already believe in, so it's not as though I'm asking you to do anything untoward. And of course there will be a couple of really wise people around that know how these types of things works that will say, like, hey, that guy's full of shit. It's just going to lead to another freaking corrupt government again. But those people will be few and far between, and most of the people they're talking to won't be able to understand the point that they're making because most people, regardless of their political ideology, are dumb.
So this guy will come into town and he'll go, hey, I have one thing that I want you guys to do. One thing that doctors don't want you to know.
Yeah, literally that fucking guy. It's the ultimate fucking flim-flam, man. That's gonna be really amenable to fucking libertarian types.
Well, right, okay, but here's the benefit of having a series of localized governments. Sure, maybe the guy can come into town and totally dick up a town, but the benefit is that it's going to be very, very difficult for him to go to every single town in America and dick it all up completely.
Until the war breaks out, which will inevitably happen because this is like the natural tide of human history. Some type of war or some type of conflict will break out and say, hey, you know, that was a very bad thing that you all suffered under. Don't you agree? It's like, oh, yes, that conflict was terrible. It's like, hey, you know, I got this one thing that might help prevent such conflicts in the future. What do you say? Do you want to go to the conflict again, or do you want to try this thing? You could try this thing, and if you don't like it, you know, you don't have to keep doing it technically, but this would resolve some conflicts. What do you say?
So this would be the guy coming into town and saying, "Hey, you know what? What if we just did this one thing? What if we just abolished private property? And then yeah, everything will be grand."
Well, that's like a bit of an extreme jump. More along the lines of something I'm thinking of is like, okay, this has already happened in America, by the way. Do you remember the evangelical, theocratic, censor everything sons of bitches from the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s?
Yeah, a bunch of Bible thumping assholes.
Yeah. Technically, they were enabled. All of those people were enabled by baby boomers who all started out as libertarian hippies.
Oh, okay.
Now, some of them were more like lefty and collectivist types. Now, there were some hippies that were just like ardent libertarians, like fuck off and leave me alone, survivalists, live in the woods motherfuckers. Usually ex-military of some kind or some other type of antisocial condition that they had.
Well,
or maybe they just been naturally antisocial.
Well, let me pause you right there because the thing about the neoconservatives is that they historically speaking they didn't come from the right. In fact, they were kind of a brainchild of the left. Neoconservatism came from the same place neoliberalism came from. It was lefty. We think that we can do the best shit if we do it top down nonsense. Neoconservatism is actually kind of the opposite of libertarianism, which is much more bottom up.
Yeah, everything we see in America and the vast majority of the Western world ever since 1945 has mostly been different flavors of leftism. We haven't seen actual right-wing politics since pre-World War II.
Yeah, exactly. Well, except for maybe we're starting to see just a little bit of it start to sprout out of the large covering of dirt.
I think in order to have like legitimate a right-wing realpolitik, there has to be some sense of the transcendental. Now, you actually, we've talked many times about this, you actually have that when you say things like nature is smarter than you and nature number one, you're number two, you just live here, nature is the big boss. That is a form of transcendental rationale. That's why you have such a hard time talking to the lefties. Like, for the lefties, everything just comes from them, and a lot of them do think they're smarter than nature, and that nature needs to be changed and repressed and rearranged to their grand top-down plan, so all the pieces will fit into the World Economic Forum, where you live in the pod, you eat the bugs, and you own nothing, but you're happy.
So happy. As long as I'm drip-fed Soma, I'll be very happy.
Yeah, something I think about, like, the left-wing elites that say things like that, like, the World Economic Forum motherfuckers, they're explicitly anti-transcendental. They're, like, really hardcore materialists in, like, the worst way. They're not just empirical, pragmatic, rational materialists. They're actually ideological materialists. Like, for them, the transcendental is found in the mortal material world, like the Faustian, ever-expanding world of the mortal creature living in perpetuity forever and ever. That's why they must become one with the machine, the great machine.
I mean, technically speaking, I guess that there is some philosophical alignment between myself and that, because, I mean, my whole thing is that, nature is the great machine. I would hate to call it a machine. That's a kind of a terrible thing.
It's not mechanistic and atomized in that way. It has too many emergent properties that couldn't be put into like a binary discrete system.
Yeah, well, right, because they seek to control the whole endeavor.
Yeah. And with something like nature, you can't directly have this one-to-one relationship where you have even by proxy.
Right. Yeah. Well, so my I understand that, like, the left, they tend to look at things from top down, and I'm not even sure that they always did this. They certainly do it today, though. But your original claim was that the libertarians are the useful idiots of the right. Now, it's possible that that that's true. That actually the right just wants to put in some sort of another top-down asshole who is actually just another neocon, someone like another Dick Cheney, but on steroids, But I mean, I'm not so certain. It seems to me as though what's currently happening is that you used to have a lot of neocons on the right, and actually a lot of them are in the process of being ousted, and that the right is actually becoming kind of specifically a libertarian party. And by the way, you'll see exactly the same pattern happening in the Libertarian Party of America itself. So the Mises Caucus basically moved in, kicked out all of the weird, very strange libertarians that wanted open borders and diversity is our strength kind of stuff, and they're all either they've already been kicked out or they're in the process of being kicked out, and the Libertarian Party itself has actually gone much more right wing and also actual libertarian. It's the same process that's happening with the Republican Party. I see actually not the libertarians being the useful idiots. I see actually the rising of power of libertarianism in America, the way that the founding fathers intended.
There's a specific thing about like the Mises Caucus stuff where, unlike the progressive left and neoliberals, that because they're so top down and authoritarian and they want to control all the pieces of the machine, they see useful idiots that don't really comport with their ideology at the end of the day when you really squint. But they're like, okay, you'll be useful for your time and place, because they're not wedded to a transcendental ideology because it's all material. So they see all these material people, idiots though they may be, that still have their place in building the quote-unquote great society or contributing to the great history of mankind, or whatever flowery mytho-poetic bullshit language they want to use to describe their crap with. Whereas, like, the Mises Caucus motherfuckers, because they actually do have something like a transcendental ideology, they see themselves surrounded by all the useful idiots. They're like, you're idiots, get the fuck out. We don't need you and we don't want you. Because they're meritocratic. Like, the meritocracy is a form of, like, a transcendental ideology when you think about it. Because nature, if from a superficial viewing, if you look at nature, it seems very meritocratic, like survival of the fittest, bred in tooth and claw. It seems meritocratic on the surface, but when you really look deeply into nature, you see a bunch of blatant, asymmetrical, parasitic relationships going on all throughout the natural world that are much more in line with the type of thinking that the left wants to do by turning everyone into like hive minds.
Well, I maybe to a certain extent. I don't think I would agree with that in most circumstances. I mean, most systems in nature, for instance, are not eusocial.
Well, when you have something like a social organism coming together, even within like a single species, you're always going to have asymmetrical power differentials. Like there is no such thing as a truly egalitarian relationship in a heterosexual sense between a man and a woman. There's always asymmetries of power on both sides, by the way. A lot of feminists want you to think that it's all on the patriarchy side and men control everything, but that's not actually the case.
Right, and the MGTOW will point to hypergamy and how it is that women are actually more privileged, and I guess both men and women simultaneously think that they're getting the short end of the stick.
Well, when you really think about it, whatever the seat of the replicator is, and with humans, it's female humans. That's the ultimate asymmetrical power differential. Like they can create the freaking life, and you can't, and that's a simple fucking fact.
Well, unless I'm powerful or strong or wealthy enough to have a harem, at which point, in fact, the effectively the seat of the replicator lies with me, and that is the difference between men and women. Like.
Well, in that case, all the replicators looks like, hey, this is a very stable environment that this particular male has cultivated. Let's all replicate with that male because they got the biggest swinging dick and the biggest swinging stick.
Well, right, and I mean, that is it's not that the seat of replication actually lies with either sex. It's really that, as we both know, as most people listening to this would probably know, nature gambles with men and has its sound blue chip investments with women, right? Like if you have 2 kids and you have a daughter and a son, then the son is either going to produce a bunch of kids or he's going to produce no kids. If you have a daughter, you can be pretty much guaranteed that she's going to produce at least, like, 2 grandchildren for you. Just, like, that's, like, a guaranteed, like, yes, we will make it on to the next generation. It's not going to be anything big or flashy. It's not going to be a 10x fold return on investment, but you will ensure, if you have a daughter, that your genetic lineage will continue. If you have a son, it's a gamble. It's possible that he becomes Elon Musk, and he has sex with 16 different supermodels and produces 32 beautiful and very intelligent babies, and it's fantastic for your genetic lineage. He could also become a homeless guy. So it's not that either side is like better than one another. It's that they're just different. They have different strategies.
I think I might have a slightly different view on this, and you might disagree with me on this, and you might have more biological facts to dispute this with. But the way I think about humans specifically, number one, all vertebrate mammals are inherently female. So when you see any human male...
What do you mean?
Okay, because X chromosome is always there in both males and females.
Okay, number one, the X and Y chromosome is with mammals. Okay, birds don't have X and Y chromosomes.
Yeah, birds, that's why I said vertebrate mammal specifically.
Oh, okay. Well, you said vertebrate. All mammals are vertebrates. There's not a single
Yeah.
invertebrate mammal. Okay, continue.
I shortened it to say mammal, so and you know enough of what I'm talking about to say it. Okay. So yeah. Basically, when you see any human male, you're going to see most of them loaded with seemingly redundant female traits, like nipples are the most obvious example. And I think there's also some psychological traits happening there too, because both men and women have the protect and provide for offspring software running. It just articulates through different hardware. Whereas, like, men's provision and protection is usually more conditional, both with the women they're with and with their children. Like, your father usually isn't going to just shower you with love and affection because you're a freaking idiot. It's like, no, why were you an idiot? You don't deserve my good graces when you acting like that. Shut the fuck up, you little prick, and learn better.
Well, I mean, if you look at most male mammals, actually they don't. Not only are they bad fathers, they aren't fathers. So, I mean, humans are kind of in a weird place where the male provides an equal role, or more or less an equal role, in the rearing of the children. Humans are, well, yeah, humans are kind of weird in that.
I think it's called something like serial monogamy, where I the male, when he wants, like it depends on how R or K type selected you are, and some people in the comments are gonna be like, what about life cycle history? Like, technically, humans are such an in-between thing, like you just said, that throughout our evolutionary past, we've been on both sides of that fence and oscillated so many times with the changing of our environment so radically, because we're kind of nomadic. Like, every human on the face of the earth that's not in Africa is kind of an invasive species. And because of that, we have to be like, sometimes we're doing this strategy, sometimes we do this other strategy. That oscillated so many times so quickly from the dynamic changing environments, and we fed into that with our ability to change the environment around us. That is unprecedented with other creatures on the earth to the extent it is with humans. It's like, we can alter our environment really quick and in very good ways or in very bad ways. Like, we can make environments where no one could live ever again if we wanted to.
Yeah. That's the thing about humans. We are a very
Basically,
weird
what you're
species.
seeing with humans is that kind of razor edge fence sitting thing, where sometimes you'll have like a poke and run with a bunch of baby mama's guy that just doesn't give a shit about raising offspring at all, and sometimes you'll see like an extremely pathologically committed father that's just sitting in this nesting zone with all the kids, like, hey, you kids, don't you run to the street or I'll beat your freaking ass. Metaphorically speaking, of course. We do not condone abusive behavior on the public space.
No, we don't. But no, I mean, if you look at the role that men and women take in parenting, overall, of course, in the brave new world that we live in, I mean, I guess gender roles no longer matter. Sex isn't a thing. Everyone is intersex or intergender or whatever. All the things all at once. Everything all the time, all at once. But in general, women are very good at caring for infants and very young children. And it makes sense. I mean, they have to breastfeed them. Now, in my experience, and just for my own life, it seems as though after the child reaches the age where it can like talk and like walk around and stuff, the father starts to play a much more significant role. The father, like the mother represents, just pure nurture, and that's very important for a little toddler. The father represents something that you can actually push upon, and something that's going to back at you. It's resistance. It's something that is going to challenge you. It's not going to challenge you, outside of your abilities, but it is going to represent a challenge. It's kind of the opposite of the nurturing of the mother. Actually, the slightest example of this is a dad joke, right? You'll notice that dads are, and by the way, I'm not even a father yet, and I find myself making dad jokes all the time. It must be something that is innate to the male gender, but just like with something as simple as wordplay, right? Just trying to, just kind of try to fuck with the kid just a little bit. That's what men do. They offer a challenge. They offer, something that the child can try to test their skills against. That is the role of the father, and it turns out that actually both of those things are incredibly important at different ages of the life cycle for a child. Both play an incredibly important role.
Also, women are capable of that, but not to the same, like the dad joke type of thing. But usually when mothers do it, it's kind of like this passive-aggressive dig, where it's more played emotionally rather than abstractly. Like, well, aren't you just the sweetest little bundle of joy? That's nice, dear. When the kid does something abhorrent and the mother just says, that's nice, dear. That's like the emotional version of dad joke.
Yeah, but there's a negative emotion behind it, whereas when it comes to a dad joke, there is no negativity behind it. It's
Yeah, because it's contained to the abstract realm of like wordplay, like you said.
Well, you know what? It's not even that it's abstract. I would say it's specifically jovial. It's that the father actually the father is showing that there is it's not a negative thing. It's actually a positive thing to have a certain amount of conflict and a certain amount of like competition, a certain amount of like gamesmanship, right? From the I guess the what does Jordan Peterson call it? The archetypical expression.
The archetypes buckle.
Yeah, let's start talking about lobsters now. But no, but it's like the archetypical thing that the father provides is that it's really more of a game. It's like playing a game of chess. It's fun to do the wordplay of a dad joke. It's fun to I don't know, get into a wrestling match or toss a ball around or something. It's challenging. It's something that you could lose at, but it's all in the name of fun. It's jovial. It has positive, good energy vibes to it. Whereas I think that a lot of the times when it comes to the mother, you have a very nurturing environment, but when things are no longer as controlled, when you don't know exactly who the winner or the loser of the game is going to be, that's when you start to get into more of the like when things are less controlled, you get more of that kind of negative emotion, that more passive aggressive emotion from the mother. That's an archetypical expression. That's a stereotype, of course. I'm sure that there are plenty of mothers out there that can do a jovial dad joke just as well as any guy. But I'm just saying, on average, that's what it seems like to me.
Usually the mothers that I notice that are capable of that are like frontiers women and farmer types that do a lot of really hard labor around the house and the maintenance of the homestead, for lack of a better term. Usually they're connected with more of like this primordial struggle against the chaos of nature, more so than like a suburban house mom would be.
I mean, that is the more natural state of a woman, right? Like it's a very new thing to have like a 50s suburban housewife, right? Like that's a very modern thing. It's something that
technically modern women Now, this might be a bit of a hot take, but most modern women in the Western world are already cyborgs.
Because of Facebook.
No, because of blenders and stoves and laundry machines.
Oh, that is a spicy
Those
take.
are cybernetic extensions of what I've seen, like people in third world countries, like mothers in third world countries, so they have to put out, like, they hang the blanket up and they hit it with a stick to knock the dust out. And doing laundry in a third world setting without a washing machine is a very grueling manual labor task. And starting a fire and getting food cooking without electricity is much more difficult.
Well, by the same argument, men that go to work and I don't know, work on a computer, I mean, they're a cyborg as well. I mean, in fact, all human beings nowadays, unless you're way out in the wilderness, you are at least part cyborg. If we're
You know what? The ultimate expression of the cyborg man, the Untermensch cyborg, is the freaking Reddit moderator.
Oh yeah, like you. Yeah, exactly.
Oh shit, spicy. Well, most of my actual professional life is not contained to the bowels of cyberspace, so I have to do a bunch of real life physical things relatively often. So
that's true.
And I have to deal with people face to face that might not always be in the best of moods, if you know what I mean.
That is fair. For anyone who doesn't know, Breaker is a genuine person. We won't assume his gender. I mean, their gender, her gender. But
how dare you?
They drive trucks for a living. So yeah, that is what they do.
Oh snap! But yeah, let's see, where were we going with all of this?
Well,
this was going somewhere.
For whatever reason, this was going to relate back to your initial thesis that the Libertarians are the useful idiots, which I vehemently disagree.
Yeah, it kind of comes to a head like this. Like what we were talking about, like biological essential characteristics. You can't be the dad that just tells dad jokes all the time. The libertarian is like the dad that just tells jokes all the time. It's like, they'll be fine. They're not going to fall over a cliff or anything. I put up a fence. It'll be fine. No, you freaking kids, how about a dad joke? Like, sometimes you have to be a bit disciplinarian and firm. And that's more of like the autocratic, theocratic, authoritarian right. They're like the firm-handed, stoic father that never laughs at anything. He's like, what are you doing in there? I don't like it, and you better not do that again. And you can't be that all the time either. But
I think that's just being a fucking asshole.
Of course you would think that. I won't get too personal on the show, but yeah. There's a reason why you would think like that, and we both know what it is.
Okay. Well, let me say this. Look, I don't think that there is. For instance, I don't think that there is a good reason to attack your child physically, right? I mean, maybe there's a couple good reasons. I don't know. I've never been a parent, so maybe...
If it ever happens, it should be extremely rare, like the child is in imminent danger of maiming themselves, or in imminent danger of maiming or killing someone else, or they're just really, really screwing with you to the point where there's no options. Like, usually, most of the time, there is going to be another option.
Right. I mean, from my perspective, it's like, as soon as the and again, I've never been a parent, so perhaps I'm completely talking out of my ass here. But from my perspective, it's like you should develop a rapport with your child as soon as they can like talk and be able to like kind of carry out a conversation. And if you find yourself unable to reason with your child to the point that you have to resort to violence, something has gone wrong, and it's not the child's fault, right? It's very likely your fault if you have reached the point where violence is the only option and you are not able to reason with your child. I don't know, but
probably because you let too many things slip up to that point and it just snowballed out of control in a way that it otherwise wouldn't have if you'd have been mildly more disciplinarian on a few other things before it got to that point. Like, usually when a child reaches, like, the fuck it, you're getting a whooping point, usually it's because they were able to get away with a lot of things that you should have had more oversight on.
Right. It's because you didn't give enough of a shit about the little things, and now you are forced to respond largely with a big thing. And
I'm gonna win bigly. I'm gonna beat your ass. You're gonna love it. There's gonna be so many Tides you won't believe it. It's gonna be terrific.
Oh, you're gonna get sick of it. Oh, you're gonna get so sick of it.
You're gonna get beat so much you're gonna get sick of beatings.
It's actually that is a thing that probably happens a lot. I think it's quite rare that someone is like, "Oh man, I've been beat a whole bunch, but I'm not sick of it." I mean, I guess unless you're in one of these monkeypox spreading gay BDSM orgies, but that's another story.
How dare you? How dare you just besmirch the LGBT plus QIA community? You should apologize right now.
I admonish myself. It's a beautiful culture.
Exactly. But anyway, now that the trans trender has left the room, okay. So this notion of like, because you also notice that most libertarians are usually more masculine in nature. Even the female libertarians have a bit more of a masculine angle to them.
That is true, yeah.
Yeah, and most collectivists are more feminine. Like, even the male collectivists have a bit more of that metrosexual soy voice. How dare you say that on Reddit? That's a slur. You're gonna get banned.
Well, right. It's the difference between dependence on others versus dependence on yourself.
Yeah, and when you're dependent on others, it behooves you to be very amenable to a wide-ranging collective of people, some of which, in other circumstances, when you had the luxury to be more firm, you might be like, I don't know how on board I am with the G word that I don't know if I can say on YouTube. The G wording of children, I don't know how comfortable I am with that, but you know, I'm in constant existential dread.
The gentrifying. We're talking about gentrifying. The gentrifying of children.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, the
Terrible.
gentrifying of children. Yeah, we'll go with that.
I'm
in constant.
That's when you take a poor kid and you dress him up in a suit. It's terrible. It's a crime against humanity.
There you go. But if you're in a state of constant existential dread where falling off the ledge to your death at any time is just this inevitable thing that can happen at any time, you don't care who you're around. Anyone can be part of the collective if you have this constant nagging existential dread. And usually you'll see in politics in the Western world, it's like all of that is usually heaped upon the shoulders of anyone vaguely right-wing. It's like, basically Republicans want you to die because they're soulless monsters. Like, Vaush literally said that.
Well, right, and I can understand how it is that from the perspective of someone that's very collectivist, what a libertarian might be saying sounds very similar to something that is actually extremely dangerous and existentially threatening, right? Because what the libertarian is proposing is, hey, be self-reliant and disassociate yourself from the collective. And if you are in the collective frame of thinking, in what I would say that cult, then actually that is akin to death. And it's not that that's necessarily incorrect, because when humans were living in tribes, if you were shunned by the tribe, that meant death in many cases. So, it's actually it's like a monkey brain part of your mind that is telling you, hey, I cannot leave the collective. That will cause death to me. And but on the flip side, I think that we live in a world where you can actually learn to not use that monkey brain part of yourself that always wants to be part of the collective, and actually try to become at least kind of more independent. Like, no man is an island. No one is purely independent. Like, you're dependent on trade, you're dependent on commerce, like, of course, but because no one can build a toaster on their own. It's impossible, or next to impossible. But it is something you can kind of try to train yourself out of. Like, I remember when I was a teenager, I always had like big FOMA, right? Like when I was in high school, I was like, oh my god, like, oh, my friends are going to go to a party. What will happen if I don't go to that party? In that case, I won't be in on the inside jokes that happen at that party. I won't know what happened. I'll be socially ostracized. Oh no, it's terrifying, especially for a teenager. That's very scary. But I don't know.
And that's why fear of missing out marketing is so effective these days with like the crypto scams and stuff. And by the way, a lot of the crypto dudes and dudettes seem to be leaning more in the libertarian direction. Like, the people who know how it actually works, which probably wouldn't fall for FOMO shitcoin scams anyway, to be honest with you. But those type of people, like, the collectivist type of people is the one that the FOMO works on. The real libertarian, like Tom Luongo level Bitcoin miner motherfucker, he's not falling for that shit. Go fuck yourself. That's a shitcoin.
Yeah, I mean that very well may be true. But yeah, I all I'm saying is that, like, that fear of not being part of the collective, of potentially being ostracized by a group of people, it's something that I like 100%. Like, I when I was a teenager, I experienced that. I think everyone does, but it's a matter of, I think that you can just work your way out of that, and from my perspective, that's a good thing. That's a merit, right? But from the perspective of the left, that's actually a great evil. It's like, oh my god, you must be a sociopath if you're not part of the collective. Historically speaking, by the way, the grandest acts of sociopathy and lack of human nature have been performed by those who were part of the collective. I just want to point that out. But whatever.
Whether it's like, there's like a right-wing version of that too, but it's, well, if I really think about it, most of it is leftism. Because the right version of that is usually more abrupt and solid, whereas the left wing has all these like corrupt multiplicity of tentacles that can work into everything over time. It's like, a lot of the World War II evil mustache man, whose name must not be mentioned, a lot of that was like socialism and leftist political doctrines when you think about it.
I was going to say, I would actually take the stance that the toothbrush mustache man was actually more of a lefty, but that's probably a controversial opinion.
Yeah, the evil mustache man, as we'll call him, basically, for all intents and purposes, it was called National Socialism, so the left kind of wants you to forget that second part. They want to talk a lot about the evils of nationalism, but they want to omit that second part of that was socialism.
Well, they also want to omit the fact that all of the most prominent progressives in the United States, the most bleeding heart lefty progressives at that time were themselves in favor of eugenics. I mean,
They still are, but the useful idiots aren't.
right, yeah. I mean, of course, yeah, that is 100% true. But I mean, it seems extremely apparent to me that that fucking Hitler was a lefty. He was a lefty of his time. We look back and we're like, oh, that seems weird. But during that time, I think I would confidently call him a fucking lefty.
Oh no, you said the name. Never gonna go. Never gonna get procced.
No.
But anyway, okay. This does all come back around to try and wrap this up in a bow. What we initially started talking about was like libertarians are the useful idiots of the right. Now, let's look at some of the characteristics of useful idiots. They're like usually extremists. Like their realpolitik is usually some extremely overblown, hyperbolic thing that does not comport with human nature.
Yeah, I agree.
And you see how, like, the more extreme, unbalanced, like, full and campy type libertarians do also fit that mold.
Yeah, but I would say the same thing about the neoconservatives, the neoliberals, the Marxists, the almost every group that basically isn't what I believe.
Yeah, but usually, like, the leaders of those type of things exercise a certain degree of differential pragmatism.
Yeah.
When it comes, that's why they kill all their useful idiots when they're no longer useful.
Very pragmatic.
Yeah, and that's one of the main reasons when I was thinking about this, like, okay, all these libertarians that want to shrink the government. I think that by the time that the type of government, by the time it comes along, that would be the type of government they'd be most happy with, whatever size or whatever form it might take. When that takes power, what will happen is like this swing in the other direction. That you're going to see like the Catholics and the extreme theocratic type people and the religious right come back in and start wanting to ban Dungeons and Dragons again, especially after all of this rainbow soup shit that we've seen coming from the left for so many years now. The reactionary swing against this is going to look very similar, but with a right-wing flavor instead of a left-wing flavor.
Well, let me ask you this, Breaker. How many? There are still a lot of monarchies in Europe. How many monarchies have political power?
What was that? I missed it.
There are still a lot of monarchies in Europe. How many monarchies, though, still have political power?
Out of the European ones, probably the English and the Dutch one come the closest, but they kind of like, they have this explicit separation of like everyday politics between them. That's why. Weird thing about the English one though is that.
Well, the point is, Breaker, is that for the most part, although monarchies exist in Europe, they're mostly mascots for the nations. It turns out that whether you agree or disagree with it, monarchism died in Europe. Now, from my perspective, I don't see this as being a thing where, oh, the libertarians take a little bit of power and then the neocons strike back with full vengeance, because that didn't really happen in Europe when it was the classical liberal individuals that usurped the monarchy from power. They never came back with a vengeance. What I actually see is that as the internet has risen to prominence and people have become less reliant on a centralized, government-approved news broadcasting system, and people are free to seek out alternative opinions on the interwebs, you have also seen a correlation with the rise of libertarian thought and ideology. And, well, the really cool thing about libertarian thought and ideology is that it doesn't require a centralized top-down command structure in order to get the message out there. In fact, it can be completely decentralized. And I can push forward my ideas about libertarianism, and some other asshole can put forward his ideas about libertarianism, and maybe I'm you know, more of a minarchist, and maybe he's more of a fucking insane ANCAP, and we can have that debate, and we can maybe make that debate public. And all of this is actually, this is a strength. This is actually, I believe that this would be anti-fragility. And so, from my perspective, actually, this doesn't make the libertarians useful idiots. This is, I think, just a fucking takeover.
One of the major things, this gets a bit nuanced and subtle. I see what you're talking about, but to go into this a bit deeper, whenever you have like elites anywhere, we still have elites. They might not be as obvious as like a monarch, where you know that's the last word and the buck stops there. Period. Fuck you if you disagree. You might not have it that explicit. And the reason you don't have it that explicit anymore is because it doesn't need to be. Because, like you said, the dissemination of information, it's like what the internet really is the world's biggest candy shop. And if you remember the old proverb about the candy store owner versus the dentist, everyone loves to go to the candy store owner and eat a bunch of tooth-rotting candy, and everyone hates to go to the dentist to pull out their rotten teeth after they've caused their own suffering through eating so much candy. But the dentist is going to come on and say, okay, I'm technically more of a useful member of this society than the candy shop guy is, because I'm the one that keeps your teeth from rotting out and causing you to have a heart attack and killing you through infection. And the sweet shop owner technically is causing that to happen to you the more you indulge in his sweets. And then the sweet shop man is going to come along, and all he needs to say is, but candy.
Well, right, but I don't understand the metaphor, because we've been living under this neoliberal, neoconservative worldview for the last, let's say, 80 years. I would say that is the fucking candy shop owner, promising us that everything will be fine if we just trust the system, just keep going along with it, everything will be fine, we'll provide for you, with a big smile on its face, and it hasn't been working out. In fact, we can see the metaphorical cavities growing and becoming infected and obsessed, and damage is occurring, and at this point we're nearing a fucking civil war, in my opinion, and or a world war. Maybe we'll do both simultaneously for the fun of it. In this metaphor, I think that the old paradigm is actually the candy provider, the one who is really not providing any sort of societal good except for enriching themselves. And I think that people are trying to come up with solutions to this. People are trying to find out how to be a good dentist, and one of these potential solutions is libertarianism, right? I mean, other people are going online and they're saying, oh, you know what? The whole issue with this neoliberal, neoconservative paradigm is that we haven't made the government large enough. In fact, they need to collect more taxes from us and construct a larger welfare state, and then we can engage in Bernie Sanders-style socialism, or just full-blown Marxism when it comes to Vouch. There are different responses to the rot that has been happening in America, but the rot exists, and people are trying to find the best solutions for dentistry.
I think when it comes to libertarians specifically, like, the more you start to see libertarians popping up, the more that, in a weird way, you kind of know that the government is actually, and the ruling body, whatever form it might take, is actually extremely stable. Like, the more, because libertarians being allowed to be as libertarian as they are in this day and age, you'll notice is sort of starting, that book is kind of slowly closing, especially on the internet. Like, a lot of the main tech sites and the big conglomerates are like, censor this, censor that, Zuckerberg, remove that word. And that lets you know that the power structures are actually in peril and that they know they're weak and they need to start clamping down on all this. When you have a strong power structure, they can afford much more luxury and liberty to the libertarian type to poke fun at the king or the ruling body or whoever it is. You can make all the jokes you want. I know I'm the biggest swinging dick at the end of the day. But the thing about the lefties is because they live in constant existential dread, they don't have the concept of being the biggest swinging dick because they're always 2 inches from falling to their death all the time. And that's their whole zeitgeist. So it kind of starts to become understandable why they're always pro-censorship in some way, shape, or form. Unless, to the extent that they're not, it's usually for pragmatic reasons because they want to push some type of high-octane anarchy that's going to destabilize the system and accelerate it towards utopia because Marxism makes perfect fucking sense and that's never been tried before.
I would argue the opposite, right? What you're saying is that when the regime is stable and it's confident in its powers, then it allows people to be libertarian. Well, that may be true, but also there's not a large push for people to be libertarian under that system. If the system is working well for people, then generally speaking, they won't hate the system or want to rebel against it. I think it's only at the times when the system is specifically shitting the bed that a lot of people go, oh, you know what? I've decided that I'm anti-system. I don't like this. And so you see actually a big flux of libertarianism, a big growth.
Yeah, that's when the dad jokes stop and the "where's my belt" starts.
Yeah, potentially. Yeah, but I think that the fact that we've seen such a growth in say the libertarian movement in America, be it in the Libertarian Party or within the Republican Party, actually is a demonstration of how badly the regime has been doing for the past, let's say, 30 years.
Yeah, and the frickin' Mar-a-Lago shit and all the neoliberal corruption, like, worldwide with all the Burisma shit in Ukraine. All of this fucking tentacles of corruption and self-enrichment that people like the fucking Bidens and the Clintons and all the classic neolib talking heads of the fucking world have been doing all this time. It's not, like, a legitimized form of power. It's only fucking candy. And when people start slowly realize that, you know what, I can't really live on candy, I'm starting to feel sick. Everything, my teeth are all rotten out now. I could barely even chew the candy anymore. My body is going to shit. I'm getting diabetes. This is too much fucking candy. And all the candy shop person can say, but candy? It's like, fuck your damn candy. It's like, no, candy is the only food you're allowed to eat. That's when the candy shop person becomes a fucking authoritarian, like a 180.
Well, and I didn't want to talk too much about this, and we will go over this much more on the Saturday show, which will should be up by Sunday evening. But the fact that Congress just decided that they're gonna put 87,000 more IRS agents in, and some of the job descriptions say that you have to be willing to use lethal force because we're gonna arm you. And they're going to make the IRS larger than, let's say, the Department of Defense in terms of the number of people that work there. This is the example of that man at the candy store going full authoritarian and saying, "You will comply."
You will buy the candy, you will eat the candy. Candy is you will live in the pod and you will eat the chocolate-covered crickets.
Well, right, but like to me, I look at that and I go, "Yo, this looks like the death throes of
that's exactly what I'm getting at. It's like when the power structure is weak, they're very censorious. They're clamping down. Like the censorship we're seeing is like censoring the word "night" on Minecraft, which is like a recent thing. It's like, okay, like all
Wait,
the
what?
censorship places that do censor. Yeah, that's a thing now. In
Why?
case you didn't know.
What's wrong with night?
I'm trying to think like what's the rationale behind that, and the closest I could get to is like a child might have a nightmare or something if you say the word night, even though in the game there's a day and night cycle. So you can't even describe something in the game with the game's chat system now.
Yeah, that makes rational sense. Yeah.
But the censorship is basically on all fronts. It's just gone insane to like these what the fuck are you even doing levels. Like this deep fake shit, this like remove words, like the fucking Reddit moderator shit. Change a person's post and change the words in it and restructure their post where they said something different. That's when censorship goes full fucking blast. When it's not just stopping you from saying anything, it's taking things you said, either sequestering them with shadow banning, or just changing the words that you posted on your account to say something completely different.
Right. I mean, this is the this all.
That's a sign of weakness. That's a sign when you have to be that powerful. Like what we were talking about before with the discipline. When you get to the point where you're beating the child's ass, it's because you've let too many small fuck-ups snowball out of control, which is what the neoliberal establishment of the Western world has been doing for fucking decades, with the welfare state, with all these entitlement fucking programs. All these little snowballs are starting to roll down the hill, get bigger and bigger, and there are these massive fucking monoliths that are going to crash into the city wall and bring the whole thing fucking down now. So they're just like constantly beating the child's ass now. They got a stick in both hands, like, fuck you! And they're just screaming like fucking Alex Jones in a rant, beating everyone up.
Well, and actually, it's even worse, right? Because when we were talking about, you know, like the violent parent previously, it was because the parent wasn't paying enough attention, or they were being lazy, right? But in this instance, it's not that they were being lazy or being inattentive. It was that actually they just had really shit parenting ideas from the get-go. Like, it would be like if you had a kid and you were like, you know what? My parenting style is that I'm just gonna give in to every single whim of my child. Whenever they throw a fit, I'm just gonna give in immediately, and that is my strategy. That's my philosophy.
Yeah, take it like this to wrap all the metaphors together. It's like, okay, if you start out saying, it's like, anytime my kid wants candy, I'm going to give them candy. If they want to eat candy for dinner, if they want to eat ice cream for lunch, if they want to eat maple syrup for breakfast and only maple syrup, I'm going to say, okay. And that's like, at first the kid is like really fucking happy, like, wow, all these sweets, this is so freaking wonderful. But over time, the kid starts to get fatter and fatter and get diabetes and becomes less and less manageable and gets all these health problems that you have to pour money into. And it's like this massive, fat, abominable fucking monster that just bites your head off with his as soon as look at you, and now your child is a raving asshole, and you just like thinking, I did everything right. I don't know why this kid is such a massive fat piece of crap, Eric Cartman style
motherfucker.
Right,
Eric Cartman. I was gonna say this is exactly like Eric Cartman from South Park. Yeah,
I'm not fat. I'm just pink bone. You can't slip down bones.
Right, and the government is actually just Eric Cartman's mom, who who just always tries to appear like nice, but never realizes that she is the monster that caused Eric Cartman.
And when Eric Cartman's mom finally puts on her mom jeans and starts actually disciplining Cartman, she looks like a fucking psychopath. She looks and sounds like a fucking maniac.
Did you see the most recent South Park? I guess you'd call it a movie that came out. The Streaming Wars.
I never caught that one. No.
It came out recently, so it was quite funny. So a rich man moves in across the street from Eric and his mom, and he's very wealthy. And And Eric is like, yo, I want him to be my dad because like I want to be really wealthy. So he was like, yo, mom, I need you to get big fake tits so that you can marry this guy. And mom's like, okay, I don't want to have big fake tits, and we don't have the money for it anyway. And then Cartman goes, okay, fine, I'll find the money. And via a process, he actually comes up with $10,000 to get the money for his mom's tit surgery. And so he brings his mom into the tit clinic, and he goes, surprise, mom, it's paid in full, you can get your breast augmentation surgery. And the mom goes, well, no, you know what? I've had enough, I'm putting my foot down. And then Eric goes, okay, well, you know what? Fine. I'll get the breast augmentation surgery. and the mom goes, okay, you know what? Whatever, fine. You get the breast augmentation surgery. And Cartman's like, oh, okay, all right, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it, mom. And she goes, okay, sweetie. And he goes, mom, I'm seriously gonna do it. And then she goes, that's fine, sweetie, I'll pick you up. He goes, are you serious, mom? And then he actually goes and he gets it. And for the rest of the South Park movie, he has these massive tits.
Donkers.
Which is just, it's this, like, but it's kind of like a metaphor, right? Because she spent so much time being just a bad mother that at this point she's at a crossroads, and now she has to just for it not to get worse, she has to let her like 10-year-old son get breast augmentation surgery, which is obviously a bad choice as a mother. Like, this is a horrible thing to let your son to do, but she has no other choice because she's been such a shit mother for the past however many years. It's like the U.S. government. That's the metaphor.
You know, there's some similar parallels with the modern state of like lefty world when you think about it. It's like, who else do we know that gets body alteration surgeries at very young ages?
There was actually there was a leaked document that came out today. I think it was today. Might have been yesterday. But it was all of these pediatricians that were openly disagreeing with, I guess, the main pediatric group or organization in America. Because this, like, main pediatric organization is like, yo, like, 100%, sex change surgeries for children is, like, totally rad, we love it. And all these pediatricians were like, oh, you know, actually, it seems to be doing more harm than good. Like, I'm kind of against this. I don't know why it is that this organization is pushing this so hard when, like, the data that we've been able to recover shows that actually this is probably not the best thing. And actually, when you look at Europe, their primary response is like cognitive behavioral therapy or something, like, you know, a psychiatric response as opposed to a let's shoot you up with hormones and chop off your balls response. Yeah, I don't know why America is doing this, because actually Europe is like, okay, let's not do this. And America's like, nah, we're doing it. Like, chop the balls off, remove the breasts, it's all good. There won't be any negative ramifications of this, like, 5 to 10 years down the line.
Yeah, I remember a certain YouTuber that I can't say the name of on YouTube. Well, he used to be a YouTuber, but you probably know who I'm thinking of. He was talking about this, and he was putting it in terms...
They were talking about...
Oh, well... Don't want to misgender this person. I don't know. They've got... Technically, they're trans. But anyway... yeah... They were talking about where once you've lied this much and your only capital is lies and deception, you have to keep the lies up, and lies don't have this core of stability and core of gravity where they just fall back down to earth and arrive at some type of fundamental truth. Lies are just these chaotic, tentacle-like, ephemeral things that can just float around and take many incarnations and forms, and don't need to comport with reality because they're not of the substance of reality, they're perversions of reality. So once you've gone down the road of lying this much, like, the lies just become so extremely insane. That's just like, yes, the word woman technically doesn't have a definition anymore because fuck it, I guess. And that's when the gaslighting is just ratcheted up to a fucking 1,000, and then even the dumbest person could come along and be like, something about this doesn't seem right. And the most mild criticism of this must be met with immediate hostility, because all of reality is now just this ephemeral floating blob of lies, and if you pull the thread out, the whole thing falls to the ground catastrophically. It kills everybody.
Yeah, that's the thing about building things off of lies. The only way to keep the House of Cards from toppling is to just keep shooting more lies at it, and it's similar to a Ponzi scheme. It will collapse eventually, but you're just trying to keep it stable for as long as possible.
And then the claims of this system become more and more outrageous until it's like no one can believe it anymore. And that's the way the left is starting to go. Like, the left and the leftist, not just the left political party in America, but the whole neoliberal globalist freaking agenda shit is going to pile up so many fucking lies that it won't be able to stand under its own weight and will just inevitably collapse. But it's going to take a lot of people with it, unfortunately.
Yeah, unfortunately it is a very large house of cards, and when those cards fall, they will fall on things.
And to wrap this all back around to the Libertarians, technically, if Libertarians were given much more permission than what they are nowadays, like, you started seeing this happening in the early days of the internet, when 4chan in the golden age of 4chan was kind of like ratcheting up into these really bizarre conspiracies. But then, like, slowly over time, when the neo-libs started losing their power, they became more censorious, like, these freaking Libertarians, we can't have people pulling these threads out. If anyone mentions any of our lies, this whole thing is going to fall apart. I think if Libertarians were allowed to just keep going down that natural path of progression, a similar thing to what we see now with, like, all the SJW insanity would have happened to the Libertarians, and the right would have just capitalized on them.
I understand, Breaker, that you're not a libertarian yourself. I understand that, but I think that perhaps you're not giving the Libertarians enough credit. I believe that we have a sound and grounded argument. I would ask you, like where are the lies that I'm basing the ideology off of? What are the lies that any libertarian is basing their ideology off of?
First, like, the most fundamental one would be that consent is paramount.
Well, that harkens back to the NAP, something that I think is hogwash and bullshit.
Yeah, that's a type of consequentialism, but I'm not necessarily, I don't need to necessarily invoke the NAP to make this argument. It's like, okay, let's say, for the sake of argument, that you and your mother are gonna fuck, and you're both consenting to this.
Oh boy. Okay. All right.
If you and your mother both consent to have sex and birth control is used and there's no risk of, like, inbreeding pregnancy and having a downy kid or whatever, it's still technically morally incorrect to do that, even though both parties have consented to it, and it's technically not hurting anyone. There exist things like, the true authoritarian right angle is that there exist things that even if both adult consenting parties agree to, still should not be done.
Okay, look, I agree that I find that to be not just abhorrent, but skin-crawlingly disgusting, right?
Yeah, you wouldn't be the type of you wouldn't consent to this. You'd be like, no, I'm not going to do that. But just for the sake of argument, there's a moral dimension to this.
I agree that is fucking disgusting. And if I were to like see that happen in real life, I would probably end up throwing up. Just how gross that is. I know that in pornography, you often see like, oh, yeah, hot MILF has sex with stepson or whatever. But I mean,
hot mommy milkers, batonka-donkers.
No, but it is actually a very disgusting thing. Incest is it's vile, and it's not mankind that made it vile. It's nature itself that made it vile. Nature tells you.
That's where you get into the transcendental. Like the protocols of nature are a form of the transcendental to you, like I said from the onset. Now, there are libertarians that aren't biologists, that haven't thought about it from that angle as much as you have.
Well, right, but here's the thing. As disgusting as I find that, and as abhorrent as that is, and as antithetical to nature as that is, I'm not certain if it is the place of man to say that is not allowed. If they are both adults and they're consenting, and there will guaranteed 100% not be some sort of fucking incest baby born from that, then perhaps it is not up to man to control that. I think that, honestly, for the most part, nature controls that good enough. I think it's extremely rare that that incest actually occurs. Maybe it occurs more often than I like to think about, but I don't know. Maybe you know, it's up to man to try to prevent unnecessary harm. If no one's being harmed in that instance, then maybe it's not up to me to decide. You know?
Well, that kind of like goes back around to the Eric Cartman protocol, where you could also say it's not your business to intervene on the parenting strategy of Cartman's mom and to just fill their son full of sweets and KFC. You could say that, but then look at the type of abhorrent, evil, destructive, manipulative, Machiavellian person that type of parenting produces and unleashes onto broader society. Think of all the evil, destructive shit Eric Cartman has done.
Yeah, but Eric Cartman is a cartoon. In reality,
well, you know, metaphorically, this kind of maps onto the left in general.
No, okay, we can tackle the metaphor in a second, but you were speaking specifically about this concept of like incest or whatever, and what I would say is that if two people happen to engage in incest, that's a problem that nature will end up solving on its own.
Yeah, and nature will also solve Eric Cartman by killing him with diabetes eventually, so...
It will, look, Eric Cartman has been in elementary school for the past, 25 years or some shit, however long South Park's been on air. The minute that Eric Cartman steps foot in high school, he's gonna be shanked because of how much of an asshole he is. There's an interesting thing that, without the influence of man, nature tends to take care of the worst shit just on its own. Nature is the ultimate bouncer. It removes the people that need to be removed. It does it. No one knows how it does it, but it does it. And thank God for that.
Yeah, but that hurts just like the dentist and the candy shop maker, like pulling out the teeth and saving the patient from infection. That is what's necessary, and nature in this metaphorical schema will be the ultimate dentist that is going to pull out all the frickin' rotten teeth. But that hurts. I'd rather have candy.
Right. But at the end of the day, we can't. This is like the major reason why I'm a libertarian. It's that I know that I cannot get around the bouncer and or metaphorical dentist and or metaphorical whatever. We've had
There's
lots of
things you
metaphors.
can do. There's things you can do to prevent it from getting to the dentist stage. Just like what we were talking about, you could stop a lot of snowballs from rolling before the dentist needs to step in. And that's what authoritarianism, that's what governance, that's what true right-wing authority means. Stopping the shit before they get to the dentist, not just saying that the dentist will take care of them because that's just a fact of nature, but stopping it before it gets to that point.
I see. Okay, so your point is that nature is the dentist. It comes for you no matter what. And the goal is to just try to avoid ever going into the dentist's office because it will hurt and he will extract teeth. And
yes.
So I suppose that the goal of the right-wing authoritarian government is to act as a shepherd for the flock, to make sure that they don't eat too much of the Candyman's candy and they don't have to visit the dentist too often. I can understand this. I understand the metaphor, and this is a good point that you raise. But at the end of the day, the shepherd is but only a man. In the same way that communism can never produce as efficient of an economy as capitalism can, because even if you had Einstein at the helm of guiding the economy, he still could never be as intelligent as the distributed computational network that is a capitalistic structure. In the same way, a shepherd can never be as competent as the distributed computational network of just allowing people to be free and choosing what they will choose. Notice that a lot of people, let's say in America, they're choosing diets, lots of different diets. Some people are doing the carnivore diet. Some people are doing the vegan diet. A lot of people are doing the vegetarian diet. Some people are doing the keto diet. Some people are doing the what do you call it? The hunter-gatherer diet. All of these people are trying different diets. One or two of those diets are going to end up, statistically speaking, being better than others, and people will follow those diets. And eventually we'll come up with probably like a really good diet. And it'll be a diet better than anything that some sort of authoritarian shepherd could come up with. So the best way to stay out of the dentist's office is to embrace a little bit of the dentist. Embrace a little bit of the nature. So, if you want to make an omelet, you got to break a few eggs.
Yeah. Now, because the left has allowed this to get away, I think a good way to wrap this up would be to say the left has allowed all this candy-eating crap to get away with for so very long that by the time that dentist comes in, like, you and I technically agree that's going to be a necessary step to this. But what I'm saying, in addition to that, after the dentist steps in, okay, all these rotten teeth got to go. That's just how it is. The dentist of nature, after taking care of all this in whatever way that may come, we do not endorse terrorism or violence on the public space, just nature. Don't think I'm doing any type of terroristic threats here, motherfucker. But anyway, the dentist is at that point is going to be covered in blood with bloody tools on a mountain of dead, rotting, reeking, bloody teeth. And people are going to look at that mountain of dead, rotting teeth, and they're going to say, oh, that was pretty bad, wasn't it? I don't ever want those bloody, rotten teeth. I don't ever want a mountain like this to ever form again. What will we do to stop this? And there's going to be someone to come along, whatever form it might take. It's like, I've got the plan to stop the Bloody Tooth Mountain event from ever happening again. And that's going to be the authoritarian right. After the libertarians have had theirs way and let the dentists do their work, then it's time for the adult in the room to step in and say, okay, You can't all just go this fucking dentist all the time. This is not a solution. This is the fucking end of the line.
Well, and I would say that, I'll tell you what, people only team up because they have a common enemy. So I can guarantee you that if the lefty Marxists were ever defeated, truly, in America, then you would be left with a faction that was composed of the authoritarian right and the libertarian right. And if that were to occur, then they would end up going to war with one another with the same passion that I currently hate the Marxist left. I would end up having to go to war with the authoritarian right. That's the nature of politics. That's the nature of man. That's the nature of nature. And you know what? I look forward to that. I think that that'll be a much more fun fight to have than the current one that we're having.
Yeah, and then libertarians will have that fight for who knows how many decades or centuries, and that'll all start to culminate in something not too dissimilar to what we're experiencing right now, but with a right-wing flavor instead of a left-wing flavor. There's what you might have misunderstood my initial thrust of this argument. When I put this in terms of like useful idiots, this is not necessarily 100% pejorative. This is just a natural cycle of civilizations that rise and fall, whether or not they're globalist, global homo lefty civilizations, or autocratic, authoritarian, Putin-esque, Xi Jinping-esque civilizations. All of this cycles back around again and again, and this isn't something that will ever stop happening. It's just as much a part of nature as the dentist pulling the rotten tooth. But which flavor of rotten tooth will it be that goes into the mountain at the end of the day? This time it's going to be lefty candy teeth. And I'm sure the right wing will have a version of that coming down the pipe, and long after we're dead and gone, like hundreds or thousands of years from now, this will happen again, and it will just cycle back again. And the thing that stays consistent throughout all of this is humanity's ability to adapt to dynamic and ever-changing environments and make the best of whatever they have in any given situation. Humans will weather this storm. Humans have been through much worse shit in history, like in prehistory. Good God, you do want to go there. So humans will bounce back from all this, but these necessary dentist visits are going to keep happening.
And you take the perspective that everything is cyclical. I take the perspective that some things are cyclical, but some things are linear. For instance, I find it very unlikely and or dubious that monarchism will rear its head once more. I think that might be something that is just dead and not cyclical. So I suppose that perhaps I can be optimistic and say, well, yes, perhaps what you're saying is true, but perhaps actually libertarianism will just win the day. It is also a possibility.
Yeah, by the way, the libertarians would be freer under an absolutist government than they would be under a collectivist government, because collectivists always feel the need to control everything, including the libertarians, whereas a secure absolutist government would just be like, we can let those libertarians dink around the farm over there as long as they pay their frickin' tithe and don't cause any trouble with the rest of the civilization. They can get up to whatever shenanigans they want to on their lands. There's this old Chinese proverb, the mountain is high and the emperor is far away.
And I believe that on that, you and I can agree. As a libertarian, if I had to choose a civilization to live under, either A, monarchy, or B, some sort of communist, national socialism, international socialism, hodgepodge bullshit, I would certainly choose the monarchy. All right, cool. Yeah, anything else that you would like to address, Breaker?
Oh man, America! Don't forget to vote for Biden in 2024. I'll take over the whole country and turn it into a banana republic. And if you don't agree with me, I'll send the FBI to raid your house and take away your guns. America.
Yes, yes. We here at the Promethean Tides, we very much like lots of fruits, including strawberries, apples, and bananas. And if we can create a banana republic, I mean, hell, we here at the Promethean Tides, we say that's a good thing. Let's vote for Biden, and let's go Brandon. So with that, peace out, everyone.
I can subscribe, everybody.